for you to join. Karibuni, karibuni. Welcome to the live. Welcome. Hey Eunice, welcome, welcome. I see you. Karibu sana. Oh jeez. What just happened? Okay. Okay, karibu. I'm waiting for a few others to come in so that we can start. Okay. Let me share the link. Eunice, can you hear me? I want to use this mic when it's here. I don't know how is the clarity of the sound, Eunice, from your end? Thank you for the response. So yeah, I'm giving people like 2 more minutes and then we start. Okay. I'm not able to share. Okay. Hey Lily, how are you? Welcome, welcome. Karibu sana Lily. Welcome to my live today. Been chilling for you guys. I'm waiting for you guys to join. Yeah, those who are requesting for the link, they're the ones that I'm sharing to. Okay, great. How have you been, Lily? Yeah. I'm here having some tea. Okay. So today was to be kinda of a Q&A in regards to boundaries. I don't know whether you have any question on boundaries. You can just chat me as I wait for the rest so that when I start with your question on boundaries. What would you want me to answer for you on boundaries? Eka kabisa, eka chai. Content in a download. Yay, Eunice. I'll just ask, what questions do you have regarding boundaries? So that when you start, I'll start with those questions and then I proceed with the rest of what I had today. Okay, that's good. Today I have a good package for you guys on boundaries. So don't worry. Sit back and wait. In a few, I'm starting. I think the rest will come and find us as we go and as we proceed. Lily, anything to do with boundaries? Anything to do with boundaries? Boundaries, we have boundaries. We have personal boundaries. We have boundaries in relationships. That is love relationships, friendships, family. Any question about that on boundaries? Because when we relate with people in any capacity, most of the time as human beings we need those boundaries so that we are able to coexist peacefully and be able to coexist in a more amicable way. So any question regards to relationship, regards to friendship, any question you have on boundaries? You can be specific, that is, if you want, on boundaries. Can be specific on the same. All right. So think we can start with you, Lily and Eunice, and then the rest will pick up from where we will be. Those who will be joining us will find us wherever tutakuwa tumefika. So Lily, I'm waiting for your question so that ikuwe ni kama icebreaker as I start. Hey Joy, thank you. Karibu sana Joy. Welcome. Joy says I wanna know about friendship boundaries. Great. Okay, we're going to talk about that. I have that mostly in our discussion. So that is one. So I think we can start with what are boundaries. Boundaries, sometimes you would find that boundaries are the lines that separate us from others. That is like the basic separation, or the limits that we place between us and the people that we get to interact with. So mostly boundaries are helpful for us in any interaction that we get to interact with someone else apart from ourselves. And also sometimes boundaries are helpful for ourselves. So when you're placing or you're putting boundaries, you come up with boundaries for yourself and for others, so that you're able to coexist well with others, and also so that you're also able to coexist well with yourself. So on the question that Joy you've asked is, I want to know about friendship boundaries. So for friendship boundaries, these are boundaries that you get to create for you to have a cordial relationship with someone else. So one of the misconceptions that most people have is that boundaries are supposed to create walls between us and the next person that we are relating with, which is not true. Boundaries are usually to enhance our relationship. So on that, I think I'll just dive into the topic of relationships in terms of how do we get to set boundaries between us and our friends, us and our parents, us and the people anyone that we get to relate with, even our colleagues. So first of all, I just want to speak on 4 types of boundaries that we have. And one of the boundaries is physical. We have physical boundaries, we have emotional boundaries, we have mental boundaries, and we usually have material boundaries. So most of the time, for the physical boundary is one of the things that we are always, hey Elsie, how are you? Karibu sana. So for the physical boundaries, those are boundaries that most of us always have the physical boundaries. We've already established the physical boundaries, and these are the boundaries, like I don't want you to touch me this way, I don't want you to hug me this way, I don't like interacting with you physically this way. That is mostly to do with your body, and that is the physical boundaries. If in case the sound, you're not able to hear me well, kindly just write on the comment section so that I'm able to correct that immediately. I was speaking about the physical boundaries. So those are usually boundaries that most of us have, and most of us have already established, even with friends, especially when we are relating with the opposite sex. We usually have a lot of boundaries towards that, so that we are also able to coexist well and also in a very respectful manner. So the next one is on material boundaries. Material boundaries, mostly this is to do with your services, your personal belongings, your finances, time also is part of your physical. Hey Muli, welcome Wende, karibu sana. I see you. We are talking about boundaries, and we've talked about the 4 types of boundaries that currently I have learned about, and I'm just pursuing to get more. So I'm here to just share what I know about it, and we can also interact and ask on the same. So on physical boundaries, we've already talked about that, which is something that I feel like most of us have already established. But one of the misconceptions mostly with the physical boundaries is, or one of the things that usually hinder us from making boundaries on physical boundaries, is usually fear, especially if you're I'm a believer, and most of the time I'm in the church environment, and most of the time you would fear to tell someone that I don't want being handled that way because of the maybe the environment that you're in. So today I'm here to encourage you that if you feel that someone is not handling you the way you want to be handled, kindly set those boundaries, especially in the physical boundaries. The other biggest place that we usually have a lot of problems is on the material boundaries. On the material boundaries, these are personal belongings, especially on friendship. The way, Joy, you've asked, you wanted to know about boundaries in friendships. Most of the time, you will find, especially for friendships, there's always that thin line between someone giving you your, like, respecting your personal belonging, respecting your services, respecting your time. Most of the time is not some of the, like, boundaries with our time is something most of the people don't respect. One of it is maybe we're meeting in town, and then we agree on a certain time, and then someone else comes in like 2 hours later without even communicating that they were to come in 2 hours later. Sorry, let me just take. So you will find that that person has actually violated your personal time, and it's a boundary that you need to put so that everyone else who interacts with you, or if you're to meet someone, they respect your time according to the way that you've communicated. Because one of the things is, once you have boundaries, you've set boundaries, you have to communicate them to the next person so that the next person can be able to know what are your boundaries when it comes to time. What are your boundaries when it comes to your personal belonging? Some of us don't like people just wearing my clothes. You come to my closet, you wear my clothes. And sometimes you will find someone else has no problem with that. And someone will wear your clothes and go with them. Those who have siblings know this. Hey, Rain, welcome. So you will find you have those people who have boundaries in regards to certain areas, and those people who don't have. So if you don't communicate to the next person that I don't like my clothes to be touched, or I don't like this and this to be touched, I don't like my phone to be touched, you would find that, especially in friendship, there's always that thin line. You would feel like this person is my friend, so I should take their phone and maybe play with it or do something with it, or even wear their clothes and go with them if I want to. But then if you've not communicated that boundary, it's very easy for someone else to violate that unknowingly. So the biggest thing that you need to do in boundaries is, once you've set the boundaries, yes, you've set them, that is a good thing. Also ensure that you communicate them in a way that the next person understands that that's a boundary to you, and that's a boundary that you are drawing, so that they are able to correlate with you peacefully. Because when I started, I talked about boundaries are not things that they're not supposed to bring walls between us or make our relating with the next person difficult. They're supposed to enhance our relationship. Hence, that's why we have these boundaries. Because sometimes you will find, now I'll speak about, in material, I'll speak about finances, especially finances. It's also a big area that most people abuse. You will find that I've borrowed you some money, and then I don't give you back the money, and I don't communicate that I've not gotten the money, I will be refunding you this and this date. I don't communicate the timelines. I don't communicate the time that I intend to give you the money. So what will happen at the end of the day? You will find yourself in a place where your friendship is strained because you borrowed me money and you're not giving me money, or I borrowed you money and I've not refunded your money back. I've not told you anything about it, and or even I just go mute. I don't want to talk to you anymore because I have your money. But then if you find such areas, that is the biggest area that you need to come in and now put boundaries with your friends. Because money is, even I'm a Christian and I talk about the Bible. Mostly my guideline is the Bible. You will find the Bible says money is it's the root of all evil. And in our society currently, especially in the economy that we are in, if you don't respect my money, there's a way we can't relate with you well. But then you would find we've not been in a place where we have established boundaries with our finances. one of the things people don't know is that saying no is also a boundary. The moment that you will find that I am not in a position to give you money, or I'm not in a position to lend you any money, if I say no to you, it does not mean that I'm a bad person. It means that I don't have the money. Or sometimes you might find that you have someone who has a tendency of maybe borrowing money and they don't give you the money back, or they don't give the people that you've had back. You can set a boundary and say that from where I am, I will not be giving people money just because they've asked for that money. Because some of us who have the problem of being people pleasers, sometimes people take advantage of that. So when you realize that there's a problem, especially the way you handle your money and relate with others, you set a boundary on that. So that is one of the areas I felt like I need to talk about a little bit, so that you also know that material boundaries are very necessary in our lives, and we need to set them without feeling guilty. And also, once we set them, we should also always set them with the mindset that I'm setting this boundary so that I will relate well with the next person, not because I want to draw walls with that next person. And also ensure you communicate your boundaries. I can see Joy has asked a question. Let me just ask another question. What advice would you give to someone who is trying to put boundaries when it comes to family, especially if it's someone who doesn't give you privacy or space? So when it comes to privacy and space, this is ideally space, personal space. This is ideally physical. This is physical. I think this is physical boundary, in that they don't want to leave your premises. They want to be around you. I don't know, Joy, you can also correct me if I've not understood your question well. So I think for this, one of the things is you communicate. Because one of the problems that we usually find ourselves in, especially me, I've been a victim of this. I assume that the next person should know that that is a boundary to me, that should know that they should not be coming to such a space, especially maybe when you're, especially as ladies, when we've grown, we reach a certain point, we also want our personal space. We want to coexist in our rooms alone. We want to exist in some spaces alone, or sometimes we just want to think alone. One of the things you can do is just communicate. The first thing I usually just feel is for you to communicate to that person and just have that conversation. Sometimes it's hard, maybe because you've already gotten used to not having that boundary, but then the moment you feel like your privacy has been violated or your personal space has been violated, it's very crucial for you to communicate. And when you're communicating it, communicate it with the mindset that I want to enhance my relationship with this person, not create a wall. That way it will enable you to be able to communicate with the next person, also giving that next person grace and ensuring that you're not also being rude, or you're not putting wall, or you're not building walls in the process of you putting your boundaries on the same. The other question, I don't know, Joy, you can also comment if I've answered your question right. If you have a follow-up question, you can also ask on the same. What if you are trying to set a boundary, but it's offending the other person? They are not understanding that you actually need the space. Wow, this is a good question. And I think on this, boundaries, you would find that when you sit down and come up with boundaries in regarding to the various areas of your life, you will find that you've placed them so that you can be able to relate with that person well. Once you communicate and you realize that this person does not want to respect your boundaries, what happens is you have the responsibility of ensuring that your boundaries are not being violated from an offensive way, from an offensive manner. In that, if I'm your friend, or I'm a family member, or I'm your colleague, so long as we are relating with you and I've already communicated with you my boundaries, and you are not willing to adhere or just be in a place where you're respecting my boundaries, it means you're not respecting me as a person. What that means is you can choose, first of all, you can choose to avoid that person. You can, sometimes people say that cutting people off from your life is is a harsh what is it called? It's not a good reality for most of us, and it's usually like a harsh action. But then sometimes it's very healthy for you to do that, because at the end of the day you are in charge of your emotions, you're in charge of your personal space, in terms of physical materiality, in terms of mental health also, because sometimes you would find that if you communicate to someone about your boundary and they're not willing to respect it, it means they don't respect you as a person. So one of the things, just avoid them or cut them off from your life, because again you are not in charge of how people react to your boundaries, but you are in charge of taking responsibility and ensuring that your boundaries are respected. So if the next person does not respect you, you don't have to force them to respect your boundaries, you just go away from them. So that is what I can tell you, Muli. Okay, Joy, you've answered it well, thank you. Great. So I think we will go to the next one. I've talked about material. I know I've not exhausted it, but I'm sure you've already gotten what I'm talking about when it comes to material boundaries. You've gotten about physical boundaries. And then now we have the mental boundary. Mental boundaries, mostly you will find this comes in when you are mostly in close relationships with people, especially in relationships with family. I'll give an example of a love relationship. When you are in a love relationship, you hear us talking about gaslighting. You would find someone did something, and then, they want to turn it around that you are the problem, they are not the problem. So for them to do that, they gaslight you, so that at the end of the day, their mistake will not be seen and you will feel guilty that you're the one who did that. So you would find that most of the time there's intimidation, especially for mental boundary. There's intimidation, there's manipulation, there's aggression. So for you to be able to set boundaries on this, you need to sit down and just realize what areas are you suffering in terms of your mental health. What is that makes you feel aggravated, or makes you feel bad, or gives you stress? Especially, just let's talk about giving you stress. What is that gives you stress when someone else does it? So that way it will help you to ensure that you're setting boundaries that are in line with you. Because one of the things that I've realized as I study and as I continue to study about boundaries is that boundaries differ from one person to the next person. So you would find that at the end of the day, what is a boundary to me, especially in my mental health, is not a boundary to the next person, because maybe they've overcome that stage. So that is also an area that you need to set a boundary and ensure that you're observing and the people around you are helping you in the same. And also ensure, I will still continue to say, ensure you communicate your boundary. Once you set a boundary, ensure you communicate it to the next person, so that at the end of the day, whoever you're relating with knows that is a boundary with you. In your relationship, as you relate with your friends, as you relate with your parents, as you relate with your siblings, as you relate with your colleagues, and anyone else you get to relate with, ensure you communicate your boundaries. Ensure when you're setting your boundaries also, they are in line with you ensuring that you're creating a healthy relationship with the next person, and also a relationship within you. The other one that I wanted to talk about more was on emotional boundaries. Emotional boundaries are most of the time like, these are very, I can't even say a thin line. Most of us have not even mastered our boundaries when it comes to our emotions. And as I said, as I was answering the question that Joy, is it Joy or Muli, about our boundaries are our responsibilities. I talked about us being in a place where we are responsible for the boundaries that we set. Most of us are usually abused emotionally without even knowing, or we get to know but we don't know what to do in that area. For you to be able, first of all, to set emotional boundaries, or any other boundaries actually, you need to first know yourself. Know who you are. What is your identity when it comes to you as a person? What makes you authentic? Because again, some people set up boundaries that even they make people around them walk in eggshells, yet even those boundaries don't align with their values. Those boundaries don't even give them an ample time as they relate with others. They just set boundaries for the sake of it, or they set boundaries because they had someone else has had that as a boundary. That is why I talked about boundaries differ from one person to the next person. So the biggest area, before even you sit down and come up with boundaries in your various areas in your life, you need first to know who you are. Identify what speaks to you, identify what works to you, what works for you in every area. Emotionally, the reason why I said emotionally, we are usually, sometimes we are very abused emotionally because we do not know who we are, we do not know what exactly we want emotionally. How should we be emotionally? Like when we are looking at emotional health, we don't know how emotional health feels like or looks like, and there we find that people are able to abuse us easily without us even noticing. There's a thing I had somewhere that love without boundaries, you will find yourself in friendships that or relationships that are abusive to you without you knowing. Why? Sometimes you would find yourself attached to people because of maybe your background, because of your past, because some of us just need love, and you will find yourself attaching to someone, and that person, maybe they are abusing you. I don't know whether you found yourself in abusive friendships, abusive relationships. Personally, I found myself in abusive relationship, not physical abuse, but emotional abuse. I found myself in spaces that, and I didn't know at that time. I think as I've started learning about boundaries and I've gone deeper in learning about boundaries, that is when I came to realize, oh, this person was abusing me emotionally and I didn't know about that. So that is also another area you really need to look at, especially when you talk about your thoughts, your moods, how you think, how you like, especially your emotions. How do you shift your emotions? When I talked about boundaries being your responsibility, it also means that you need to be responsible for your mood. You need to be responsible for your thoughts. Sometimes you will find, especially, I will give an example of a family. You are with maybe your siblings. They do things that make you irritated, or they do things that hurt you without you communicating. So you would expect this person to behave a certain way towards you, but they don't, and you wonder why they're not behaving that way towards you, because you think that it is normal for people to treat other people that way. Let's say, like, maybe you've come from work, you found someone in the house, and you expect that because nimetoka job or I've come from work, I expect this person maybe to have cooked, I expect this person maybe to have cleaned the house because they have been in the house the entire day. And then you come and get mad because you find that they've not done any of those, and then you are mad. So you are just mad in the house and you're not communicating about it. This person will not be able to know whether you're mad. This person will not, they will assume everything is okay, but then you're mad on the other side. So how do you ensure that you communicate effectively to the next person and tell them, when you do ABCD, I am not happy about it, or when you do ABCD, it hurts my feelings, and so I would wish that you would do this and this and not this and this. That way, the next person now is able to know that this person does not like being treated this way. This person likes to be treated this way. Or when I did this and this, it offended this person, or this person was hurt because of what I did. So when you are doing that and communicating your emotions effectively to the next person, it enables you to be able to relate well. It enables you to be in a space where this person is not manipulating you, this person is not aggravating you, or this person is not in a place where they are intimidating you just because you've not communicated. Another thing that comes now back to the question that Mwende had asked about this: if you have someone who is not respecting your boundaries, yet you have already communicated that boundary. Now that is where now you come in and now make a decision, because it is also your responsibility to ensure that people are not abusing you emotionally, to ensure that you're not being abused even physically. You have now to either make a decision of getting away from that person if your communication has not worked, and also you can avoid to just leave those people. That is it. I don't know whether you guys can hear me. Someone can tell me whether you can hear me. Any questions on that topic? Can tell me whether you can hear me. Oh, Edna, you joined. Thank you. Welcome, Edna. Yeah, true. Yes, Eunice is saying self-awareness equals to healthy boundaries. Very true. Very, very true. Unless you know who you are, unless you know like what speaks to you, you will not be able to set healthy boundaries. You'll not be able to even relate with others in a healthy way. Thank you, Eunice. Thank you, Lily. Nanisikia loud and clear. You're crystal clear. Yeah, thank you. So if you have any question, you can just write it there. I'm almost wrapping up. On the same. So yeah, the other part that I wanted to just touch in terms of emotional boundaries. I know all of us have been in spaces where you say this person was toxic to me, this person is a toxic friend, that person was a toxic so and so. And most of the time, you will find that we are in spaces where we've not even identified if we are ourselves, if we are toxic. There's someone who was telling me that if you have a boundary and you've not communicated to me, and then you are angry at me because I am not respecting that boundary, that is toxicity. I don't know whether that is true. I'm still researching on that. Once I'm able to get that answer, you can also tell me whether you think that is toxicity. That I have a boundary I've not communicated to you, but I expect you to respect that boundary, and when you don't respect it, I get mad at you. Is that toxicity? Just a question. Someone can answer me if you think it's toxicity. But then now at the end of the day again, when we're talking about people being toxic to you, another thing, when you talk about people being, sorry, I lost my trail of thought there. When you're talking about people being toxic to you, it's because sometimes you have not set those boundaries. Because sometimes we tolerate people too much to a level where they're abusing us emotionally, and we are consistently staying in the same spaces that we are being abused emotionally, and we don't communicate that. And once we realize that even if I communicate to this person is not hearing me, we don't get ourselves out of those situations. So it's your responsibility. I will just continue highlighting it, that it is your responsibility to ensure that your boundaries are being respected and you're not being emotionally abused, you're not being physically abused, you're not being materiality abused and all that. So it is your responsibility. Ensure that you communicate your boundaries, set boundaries that are realistic, boundaries that do not create walls with other people. Yes, Eunice, well, toxicity is a strong word, but lack of communication is unfair in all sense, 100%. Okay, that's Eunice. Eunice anaogopa jina toxicity. Eunice is like, no, don't say toxicity, it's very strong. Okay. Someone else who can give us a thought on that, about toxicity, as we wrap up. Okay, so another aspect that I wanted to talk about on boundaries is the level of access. So we've talked about for you to be able to set boundaries, there has to be self-identity, self-awareness, know what you want, know what speaks to you as a person. And now, the level of access, I think Joy had asked about friendship. Boundaries in friendship. And that is where now the level of access also comes in. Especially us relating, most of the time we relate with our friends more than even family, more than even colleagues. Whichever situation you find yourself in, one of the things that you need to know is, as we said, it is your responsibility. You have a responsibility to your boundaries. Sometimes the level of access that you give to someone, it should be determined by the level of responsibility. Someone who has a level of responsibility of 3, you cannot give them access 100% to you, knowing very well that they will not be responsible to that access that you give them. Someone with a responsibility of 10, if you give them a responsibility, an access of 100%, you know that they will be respectful to you, they will respect your boundaries. So the level of responsibility of a person in your life is what determines the level of access you give them to your life also. That also speaks to the question that Mwende had asked. If I tell you and I communicate to you my boundaries and you don't respect my boundaries, it means that you are not responsible enough to have access to me as a person. So that is something you need to think and something that you need to know about boundaries, that the level of responsibility of a person in your life should determine the kind of access you give them. Because you will find we have friends, we have acquaintances, we have networks. The level of access you give to a friend, maybe your best friend, is not the same level you give to an acquaintance, someone you've just met. Because again, they don't have responsibility towards you. They don't have any moral obligation towards you because they've just met you. They don't know you. They don't, some people don't, most of us, we will find, we meet someone today, we give them 100% access to ourselves, and then with time we start saying that this person was not responsible with my boundaries, does not respect my boundaries. So one of the things that you need to be very careful, even with friends that you have in your life, there are friends that you know, huyu hata nikimwambia hii siri yangu hata ikip, huyu nikimfanyia, if I tell this person this, the next day I will hear everyone else knowing that. When most of the time, that is just a simple example, when you know that this person, if I tell them this, they will not be able to keep quiet, even if it's a secret. I will hear it with everyone else the next day. What do you usually do? You don't tell them anything. So that also applies to our boundaries, because we also want to have healthy relationships with people and also ourselves. So the first thing is not give people access, people who don't have responsibility, who are not responsible enough to have such access to you as a person. Welcome for those who have joined. We are talking about boundaries, and I was talking about the level of access is what determines the level of responsibility of a person, is what determines the access you give them to yourself. So the other boundary that we will talk about today, if you have any questions about boundaries, you can ask as we are almost concluding, so you can ask if you have any question in regards to boundaries. Okay, so the other one is now personal boundaries. As much as we put boundaries for people, we put boundaries for us to be able to relate with the next person. Also, we need to have boundaries to enable us to relate with ourselves well. A simple boundary about us relating with ourselves is, let's say you can set up a sleeping time. You say that I will be sleeping at maybe 10. If you set that because I want to wake up the next day early, I want to wake up refreshed the next day. Once you set such a boundary, that's a boundary with your time. So it's also a responsibility to you that once you set such a boundary, you respect such a boundary, which will help you to have a better relationship with yourself in terms of, I am able to wake up early, I am able to be productive the next day because I slept early, got enough sleep, and also in my health, I'm well. Another boundary you can set is, I won't be taking junk food. That is a boundary in some extent. So you can have personal boundaries that enable you to have a good relationship also with yourself. Yeah. So I don't know whether we have any questions. Any questions as we conclude? For those who are joining us, we are talking about boundaries. We are talking about boundaries. So in case you have any question in regards to boundaries, you can ask. In case you have any question on boundaries, you can ask. For those who've been with me since we started the live, you can also comment on one area that you feel like one area that you feel that I've talked about that really spoke to you, and maybe an area that you would want me to expound further. You can just talk about. Hi Collins, welcome. So I'm waiting for those who've been with me also, and those. So Collins, we are talking about boundaries. If you have any question in regards to boundaries, we are concluding up on the same. If you have any questions about boundaries, you can ask. That is family background, family boundaries, friendship, romantic relationships. You can ask anything about boundaries on the same. Yeah. Okay. I'm waiting for you guys to just engage me on that. If there's a place where you feel like you need expansion, one area that you feel like I've talked that has touched you or has spoken to you in terms of the boundaries, you can also just comment down below. And those who are joining, you can ask any question that you might have about boundaries. Okay. Okay, just to clarify on mental boundaries, maybe I missed the points. So I didn't really speak much on mental boundaries, but mental boundaries I spoke about. First of all, when we are talking about, I think I'll come back to that so that I don't run. Okay. So on mental boundaries, I spoke about, first of all, before you even come to put boundaries on your mental, first of all, you need to know where you are. That is why I came up and talked about, you need to know who you are. You have to be very self-aware, because mental boundaries and emotional boundaries are boundaries that are usually very, most of the time in our relating with each other, we abuse them. And sometimes you even find yourself, you're the one who is abusing someone else emotionally without even knowing. So on mental boundaries, I talked about you being able to be aware of your mental health, where you are, what triggers you, what stresses you. I talked about stress on mental health. Sometimes you will find yourself in spaces where the people that you're relating with or the person you're relating with is always giving you stress. You communicate your boundary or how you wouldn't want to be treated, they still continue treating you the same. And over time, you find yourself stressed, you find yourself depressed, even in depression comes in place, because in the first place, first of all, you did not identify that this person was abusing you emotionally or mentally. And then the second thing, you had not set a boundary that if this person or the next person or anyone else does this to me, this disturbs my mental health. So I need to ensure that I communicate to anyone who does this, or even when we start a relationship with someone, I communicate and tell them, I don't like you blue ticking me. That's a very simple thing. Some people get stressed because someone has not communicated to them or has blue ticked them. Some people get stressed because maybe I called you, you didn't communicate back, because we have an auto reply. You can put an auto reply. There are people who get stressed because of that, because of maybe past triggers that they've experienced in relationships or friendships that they've been in. So you need to ensure that you're self-aware. What triggers you mentally? What disturbs you mentally? So that by the time you're even setting a boundary, you're setting a boundary that is very customized to yourself, and now you are able to communicate it to the next person. And when you find yourself in an environment where the next person is not respecting that, you are able to remove yourself from that environment for the sake of your mental health. I don't know whether, Joy, I've answered you well on the same. Lily, mimi hapo pa communication boundaries, like, don't just assume what is common sense to you is the same for everyone. Never assume, always communicate, no matter how basic it seems. Very true, very true. I think that one I spoke about it. Relating with oneself healthily is an area of concern for real. This is literally a lifetime. Level of responsibility equals to access, and of course, self-awareness, making relevant boundaries. Thank you. Karibu sana, welcome. So that's an area that spoke to Eunice on the level of responsibility equals to the access that you give someone. And then respecting my own boundary is where the problem comes in. Yes, very true. When you don't respect your own boundaries, you don't expect someone else to respect them. And that's why I said, when you're setting your boundaries, set them when they are accustomed to you. Like, they make sense. Don't make boundaries that even yourself you don't respect them. So you ensure that the boundaries that you set, they make sense to you, because they are just to make you have a healthy relationship with the next person and also yourself. Same ring, same. Yes, Joy says that. Lily, I respect other people's boundaries, but mine, no, hey? Yeah, true. Because there are people you would find they respect other people's boundaries, but they don't respect their own. So ensure that your boundaries are your responsibilities, and ensure that you observe them, and you ensure that you guard yourself. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for staying with me. Asanteni sana, as we say in Kenya. For those who are not watching from Kenya, thank you so much for joining me. I don't know whether we have anyone with anything else. If there is none, thank you so much for joining me. Bye. Have a good night, everyone. You are free to leave from the live. Karibuni sana. Thank you, Jackroni. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Eunice. Good night, Lily. Good night. Thank you so much for joining and supporting me, for those who joined today's live. Joy tells me you can start a podcast. Thank you. I'll consider that. Thank you. Rain says bye, good night. Sending you love to Rain. Good night. Bye, good night. Thank you. Mende tells me you're gifted. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I think all of you, most of you have left. There's someone joining. We are living the life. We are living the life, guys. We are living. Also, you can actually comment down there which topic you would want me to talk about next or in my next episodes. You can also comment down there. Great. Okay, so guys, thank you for tuning in and staying with me till the end of the live. I'm really grateful for those who did not find the live or have just joined in when we are leaving. Kindly go and watch it again. I'll leave it in the, it will still be in the channel, so go and watch it. Share. Yeah. Thank you guys. Bye. Have a good night, all of you.